Welcome to the Crystal Zone podcast with Kyle Russell of crystalconcentrics.com. Our motto is Crystals for Life. You're in tune to the Crystal Zone podcast, and we're just taking a moment now to share a word from our partners, people who make this show possible and who might be able to help you in some way.
Hi, I'm Nina Manelson, and this is a message for you if you're a woman over 40 who has been on and off diets for at least 10 years. I'm a nutrition and body relationship therapist, and I help women feel truly at home in their body. I work with smart women who already have so much information about what they should or shouldn't do to care for themselves, but still feel like they're at war with their body and food. If this resonates with you, please visit ninamanelson.com. I have a free ebook for you, How to Be a Woman at Ease in Her Body.
Hey there, it is Kyle Russell, and I am bringing you the second episode of my podcast, and I wanted to get into the conversation about healing, crystal healing. What does that really even mean? And I've been inspired by a couple of different topics. First of all, I do get people who come into my Portal Crystal Gallery and they really don't know anything about crystals yet. They're just getting into it and they're curious and they're hoping for some answers. And I want to give those answers, but I also find myself fighting off a kind of jaded sense of disappointment at the throngs of people who have expressed interest in crystals and sort of stepped forward and say they want to learn more, and they buy a crystal or they buy a book, and then they just drop off because of some reason. There are probably many reasons why people let go of working with crystals. What I find might be the main reason, well, actually two main reasons. One is that they're looking for an easy fix and it's not a panacea. And the second reason people tend to back off is that it requires what I call spiritual work. So I'm going to give you an example of what spiritual work looks like from a personal perspective. I have recently gotten a strange kind of little infection in my mouth. It doesn't hurt, and none of the teeth hurt. And I have an endodontist who believes that I should be extracting that tooth, and then putting in like a bridge or an implant, which is not an attractive idea at all. And they're basing this looking at an x-ray that honestly looks exactly like the x-ray of the same tooth that was taken years ago when it was healthy. So what we're coming up against is the limitations of state-of-the-art science and medicine. And I'm not trying to question medicine or state-of-the-art science. I am not one of those people who throws out the baby with the bathwater. There is a lot to be learned and benefited from when working with mainstream traditional medicines. But I just want people to realize that there are limitations to it. I was on Quora, which is an interesting sort of expertise question and answer website and app. And I was looking at some of the answers people were giving to questions regarding the New Age and metaphysical healing. And just from a first glance, I was noticing a lot of skepticism and total discounting of any type of metaphysical or spiritual approach. And I thought, do I want to get in there and get my feet wet and start sort of debunking the debunkers? But I resisted that temptation because we have to really choose our battles now. I won't say more than ever. Uh, I'm not. I'm not an apocalyptic visionary. I know that there are things about what's happening now that are unusually bad and dangerous. I do realize that the end of the race is possible, but when I was a kid and nuclear weapons were a thing, we certainly did not feel safe and were also sensing ourselves at the brink of total destruction. Anyone who's learned or studied anything about the impact and effect of nuclear weapons knows that they are complete obliteration. But this new climate change problem is not something that I grew up with, and it's an added peril to the world now. I want to come back to the personal. You'll see me sometimes expanding to the universal, coming back to the individual. That's how we roll. That's what this work is all about. It's all about being in the presence of the specific and also the general. Now, I had this little thing in my mouth, and I've been taking antibiotics as instructed, and they didn't work, so I'm taking another type of antibiotic, and now I'm getting probiotics to fight the antibiotics. So, I mean, I'm in general opposed to substances because I find in today's society we are thinking of ourselves as an upper downer machine. When we want to sleep, we take sedatives. When we want to wake up, we take caffeine. It's the biggest drug out there. Sugar also very, very big. And this is what people are living and dying on. Never mind all the natural and prescription drugs that are also available currently. So, what I've been doing for myself is when I drive, I put a piece of amber against my cheek where this inflammation is happening. And I swear every time I do that, it feels lighter, it feels cleaner, it feels fresher, and more able to deal with whatever is going on. But instead of just thinking about what are the prescriptive solutions, what kind of stones can I put on the problem or throw at the problem to make things better, I say to myself, well, what's going on underneath? Why is this happening in this tooth at this time? And the answer to that question is one I haven't actually come up with, mostly because I haven't taken the time. The flip side, as I was mentioning, to quick fix prescriptivism is the notion that you don't have to take time on anything. And the fact of the matter is, healing is something that takes time. Ask a broken bone, ask a cut that has scarred and is healing, and you will get the answer that those things don't fix themselves overnight. It's not like in Star Trek where they have those magic healing um, contraptions that you either step into or they wave over your body, and then suddenly whatever was broken or cut or wounded is suddenly fixed. I've also been hearing a lot about cord cutting. I was recommended by someone on YouTube to watch this interesting video about Perez Hilton getting healed by visiting a crystal shop in LA and having a crystal healer lay stones onto him for 5 or 10 minutes, and then he felt much better afterwards. I don't discount the utility of the stones or the intention of the healer, and I also recognize that even for me, when I lie down and close my eyes, in any context, I am definitely feeling better afterwards. So I don't want to yuck somebody else's yum, but my issues with that are a few fold. One, I think that the the stones used were not maybe the ones, definitely not the ones I would have chosen. And I don't know what the basis is by which they chose the stones that they used. And that's something that happens a lot, is that people are basing their prescriptions and their healing choices on something they read online, something they read in a favorite book about crystals. But as you have probably noticed, every book is quite different, and ultimately it really comes down to which source you trust and why. And to not toot my own horn, but to argue for my own perspective, it's not based on any of the books or any of the derivative studies or tables or cross-sectional analyses of what other people have said about crystals, either in the recent or distant past. And it's certainly not based on any ancient tradition that I can point to and say, oh yes, this is the tribal practice of such and such people from such and such a place. A lot of people do that, and others base their crystal healing knowledge or recommendations on science somehow, which is a bit of a stretch to me. They are really different things. Science was developed as a way of testing and proving the reproducibility of any given um, problem solving technique. And that has come in very handy with medicine, because if you can figure out how to fix a type of cancer one time and you learn from that, and then that gets reported into some medical journal and the knowledge is shared throughout the medical schools, then the chances are that the next time a doctor deals with that particular issue, informed by this incredible wealth and body of knowledge, that they will be better able to handle it productively and effectively. And I truly, truly respect that, having had a major surgery to stop cancer myself and having that healing process succeed. I am certainly grateful to the medical profession, but I didn't stop there. I didn't leave it to the doctors alone to fix my problem. I changed my diet and I changed my attitude. A lot of people don't want to change their diets. They don't really understand, and unfortunately, a lot of the mainstream medical profession is not willing to put their foot down and say, you know what, these types of foods are really not acceptable. I just heard about an ecological proposal that eating meat become illegal because doing so is part of a larger industrial complex that is destroying the planet. I don't discount that. I certainly don't eat meat or chicken myself, but I don't mean to offend anyone in suggesting that they're not worth eating. I eat fish, and I wish I didn't have to, but I didn't eat fish at all or any meat for 7 years, and I lost all kinds of weight and I think put myself at risk health wise. We are naturally and historically omnivores, and I've heard vegetarians say, look at the mighty elephant. It is strong and it is vegetarian. Yes, but it has also always been so. Whereas we have historically been scavengers, and if anyone can live without eating meat, I tip my hat to you. I think that's definitely the right way to go. But coming back to my personal situation, what spiritual work have I done? I've come up empty in answering why did I get this particular infection. And Science may argue that yes, there are risk factors that increase the likelihood that you will get such and such an illness, and there are things that if you do will definitely produce such and such an illness. But you've heard stories of people who are smokers all into their 90s and never have any problems with their lungs. And then you have someone who indulges in just a few uh, hits of a vape, and then they come down with this awful lung deadly disease that is going around currently. So there are many, many ways in which you can get sick, and science, while it attempts to heal you, you'll notice that the disclaimers whenever you go in for an operation or any type of major procedure are that you are letting them off the hook in case something goes wrong, because they know that science is not always going to result in the correct outcome for you. And that's really where spirit comes in. And in addition to changing my diet when I had cancer, I also changed my attitude and my approach to life. Previously, I had done everything that was expected of me, and afterwards, I started to become more of a maverick, doing what I felt, for better or for worse, that has, put me in a situation where I'm not a corporate beneficiary of a retirement fund, and that's too bad for me, because I made other choices to be an entrepreneur and to work for myself for the entirety of my adult life. That's something I just have to live with. And likewise, I have to live with the fact that, now I have this particular health issue, which may lead to other health issues, and I am going to have to look deeper, just as I did when I had my cancer, and I'm going to have to take some time to really do that. And in taking that time to explore and understand what my own negative attitudes may have been that could have contributed to my illness, I have to look at what changes might be necessary. What do I have to do different, if anything? Or is it just a matter of chance? Because one of the key New Age ideas is that bad things happen for specific reasons. And this is also a common theme in most of the religious thinking throughout the ages. I must have done something to deserve this. My sin or misbehavior is now coming back to me. Karma is in effect here. And that all may be true. But also, from an existentialist perspective, and probably the scientific perspective, bad things do happen to good people, and life is not fair, and you are blessed and lucky to have the health and longevity that you do get to enjoy, but you should not come to expect it or feel like it's some sort of a right that you should have those things. I had a guy walk into the store yesterday. It was very interesting. He noticed that I had the same scar that he had. I actually have two big scars, and he had one because medicine has improved and they're able to do more less invasively than they used to in the past. And he had had some sort of a different type of cancer experience, but he was on the mend with some complications here and there. And it was probably interesting for him to see me in a better place around all of this, having been over it for now 26 years. And he asked me some questions. We talked about amber. He was interested. He had learned that amber might be helpful, and I certainly agreed with that. From that video I mentioned earlier, the crystal healer mentioned the word extracting, stones that are extracting. And I like that. I like that adjective, and it applies to healing stones, of which I actually made a video. I made a video of 5 healing stones for when you're sick, and I'm going to go over those right now for you as a way of sort of tying together some of my different media outlets. I've started the podcast because for some people it's easier to hear what you have to say if they're on the go, or if they're not able to do the whole visual thing and they have headphones and whatnot. What I chose was snowy carnelian and milky quartz, celestite, skeletal quartz, and healerite. And my reasons were these. Snowy carnelian is a general healing stone, but it's a combination of the denser blue carnelian with a lighter, chalkier substance that I do consider extractive in the same way that jet or amber might be. So the idea here is to take blockage and remove it. But in the case of my friend there, my new friend who had just had his surgery, we have already had problematic or potentially problematic lymph nodes removed from our body. So in that case, are we still fighting cancer per se, or are we fighting the environment in which the cancer had been formed, and any kind of ongoing issues that might produce future cancer? So that is a question that's a little bit deeper, and I recommended he attend one of my meditations. I certainly do private sessions online and in person where we can explore some of these deeper questions, which is part of doing that thing that I have called spirit work. Now, the second stone I mentioned was milky quartz. Milky quartz is the only heart stone of the 5 stones I was talking about, and it's very handy. In my video doesn't actually use my card deck, but these stones do hail from and are inspired by my crystal meditation and affirmation card deck, where 80 crystals are identified and photographed, and you can learn about their basic qualities and also what energy zone they hail from. And the healing energy zone is a very special one because I've attached it to the sort of lungs and breast of the body, but it's not one of the original 7 chakras that you usually hear about. And I created it because I had a bunch of healing stones with no other part of the body to reside in. And so 4 of these stones fit into that category. But the milky quartz is a heart stone, and it's interesting when it comes to healing. I think you can be looking at self, you can be looking at your vision, you can be looking at your spirit guides and source, you can certainly be looking at root and foundation. There are lots of different places you can look for the sources and solutions to any given problem. But you ultimately, and I think most immediately, have to go to the heart and see what's happening with the heart. And milky quartz as a compassion and nurturance stone makes the most sense for me as the one to really work with. I also put celestite, which is the stone of heavenly gifts and mercies, which is certainly handy when you're not feeling well. I chose skeletal quartz because it symbolizes weakness in health, that sort of coexistence of the healthy body with the unwell body. And last, I chose healerite, which is a really nice sort of balancing green stone, which didn't even make it into my card deck. I had green, I had green opal in my card deck. So a lot of stones will not mimic, but they will collaborate or be close representations of each other's what I call energy signature. So in this podcast, I've engaged in a conversation about healing and health and how we think about our illness and what this thing is that I call spiritual work. and that it's not an easy, quick, or panacea that we're seeking, but more of an exploration. And obviously, if you're interested in learning more about that, keep listening to future podcasts, look at my videos, sign on to my mailing list, write me an email, kyle@crystalconcentrics.com. I've also gone over 5 stones that I think are useful in helping with dealing with unwellness. But truly, all of them are in one way or another. It just depends on the context. And it's not just about laying on, although laying on can be a great and quick fix. I always recommend people look a little deeper, try a little harder to understand what's happening, and I am here to help you with that process, particularly with regard to crystals. So thanks for tuning in. We'll look forward to connecting again in the future.
You're in tune to the Crystal Zone podcast, talking all about crystals for life, and you might wonder where would be a great place to buy crystals. Well, we have a warehouse and storefront, the Portal Crystal Gallery in Arlington Center, Massachusetts, and you can have a look at all our displayed items, and also, if there's something of interest, we have an extensive backstock. In any case, if you're more distant and you want to work by email and phone, we are happy to serve you through our quality custom crystal mail order service. A portion of our inventory is up at crystalconcentrics.com, but you should definitely email Kyle, K-Y-L-E, at crystalconcentrics.com with any questions. We can send you videos and show you all kinds of items which we have not yet had time to upload onto the site. Looking forward to hearing from you.